Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be continuing part 3 of Franklin Delano Floyd. At this time I'm actually going to be going back and telling Sandra's story because I find it very imperative to the story of Franklin. Now when Sandra was 17, she started dating a man named Cliff Savakis. He was her high school sweetheart, and they would say that it was love at first sight. And it was so great that shortly after graduating high school, they would actually get married. And Sandra would actually find herself pregnant, which would be later be known to have her daughter, Suzanne Zavakis, which is actually important to this story. But at the time that she had gotten pregnant, Cliff was actually drafted into the Vietnam War, and he would later say that able to maintain that relationship was actually very difficult. So when he returned home, he had found out that Sandra was in another relationship with a man named Dennis Bradensburg. So he actually shortly went home to live with his parents. Now, shortly after this, Dennis and Sandra would have 2 kids, Allison and Philip. Shortly after having the children, Dennis would actually sit there and leave Sandra, leaving her alone to take care of the 3 children. And you would think that that was the worst that it would get, but it gets much worse because an actual natural disaster completely devastated her trailer park home that she was living at. She would later sit there and claim that the wind was so intense that it actually flipped the trailer on its side. Completely devastated by the wreckage of the natural disaster, Sandra actually went to ask for assistance, in which the assistants had actually told her they would have to take her children away because she had no way to sit there and take care of her children. Sandra was completely devastated, and she found herself walking into a church completely upset and breaking down. It was there that she had met a man who had asked what was going on, and when she had told her story, he would sit there and tell her, "Don't worry, I'll help you get the kids back, and we will do everything right. I'll take care of you and the children." That man's name was Brandon Williams, also known as Franklin Delano Floyd. Sandra would later say that this was actually the worst thing that she could have done because the living situation, once she got married to Franklin, had gotten very, very bad. She would later say that after they got married, he started showing more of his meaner and violent side, to which she would say that it would not be uncommon for Franklin to sit there and he would have a knife by his side pocket, and he would look at her on a daily basis and hold his knife and say, "You'll die before you ever leave me." On one day, Sandra went to the store to actually get diapers and food for the family. It was there that she had found out that the checks were bad, and she actually went to jail for 30 days. And when she would return, she came home to every mother's worst nightmare. Not only was the house completely empty, but Franklin and the 3 children were nowhere to be found. So she immediately went to the police and reported her kids being kidnapped, which the police had asked, "Is this man truly your husband?" And she said yes. And at the time, the police said, because he's legally married to you, it's not considered kidnapping, and this is a civil case. She would later have to be escorted out of the police station. It is actually around this time that Franklin had this photo taken with Suzanne. And looking at it now, you can truly see how haunting this photo is. Franklin had nothing to do with maternal love with the children, because the moment he sat there and abducted the children, he sold everything in the home, and he had actually put the other 2 children, Allison and Philip, in different orphanages. and then took Suzanne with him, and they went to another place to live at. And they still maintain the name there under the name of Brandon and Suzanne Zavakis.